So, good day sa ating lahat. Good morning, good afternoon, kung ano mang oras nyo ito pinapanood ngayon. After having discussed the general provisions on obligations, we will now proceed with the nature and effect of obligations, which is our main topic sa ating Module 3. Module 3 will be divided into two parts. Didiscusin natin siya for 2 weeks. And so, for this module or for this lesson, the intended learning outcomes are the following. First, you should be able to enumerate the duties of the debtor and the remedies of the creditor in real and personal obligations. Second, discuss the concepts of fraud, negligence, delay, and contravention of the terms of the obligation as grounds for liabilities and their effects to the rights and duties of the parties. And third, determine the requisites of fortuitous events in order to exempt the obligor or the debtor from liability. So, bali itong first two learning outcomes, we shall accomplish this two sa part 1, and the last learning outcome shall be in part 2. So, part 1, we shall discuss articles 1163 to 1170. So, let's begin. Article 1163. It provides that every person obliged to give something is also obliged to take care of it with the proper diligence of a good father of a family, unless the law or the stipulation of the parties requires another standard of care. So clearly, 1163 talks about an obligation to give something. Pag sinabi nating obligation to give something, ano nga ulit klaseng obligation yun? Is it real or is it personal? Diba? It is real. Considering that the obligation is to give something, which in contrast sa personal obligation is to render service. To do or not to do. So, discussin muna natin yung ibig sabihin ng tinatawag nating specific at yung determinate as against generic or indeterminate. So, pag sinabi nating specific or determinate, pinapatungkulan natin yung bagay, yung object of the obligation. So, 1163, Article 1163, refers to an obligation to give a specific or determinate thing or a specific real obligation. So, clear tayo na yung 1163 refers to an obligation to give a specific or determinate thing. Kaya tinatawag natin siya na specific pagdating sa object and real pagdating sa obligation. Specific, real obligation. A thing is said to be specific or determinate if particularly designated or physically segregated from others of the same class. Masasabi daw na specific or determinate yung isang bagay if particularly designated or physically segregated from others of the same class. Yung talagang siya ay identified na isang specific na bagay. Examples, the watch I am wearing. Syempre specific yun kasi nag-iisa lang naman yung watch na aking suot. Halimbawa, the watch I am wearing. Second, my dog named Pet. So specific siya. Hindi lang siya basta dog, kundi siya ay dog named Pet. My dog named Pet. Third, the red Toyota Fortuner with plate number AMU 0406 model 2017. Yan, specific. Determinate siya. And another example, 100 peso bill with serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, talagang identified siya na itong 100 peso bill na ito with serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ay nag-iisa. Specific siya. And pagdating naman sa generic or indeterminate thing, sinasabi natin na ang isang bagay ay generic or indeterminate when it refers only to a class or genus to which it pertains and cannot be pointed out with particularity. Hindi mo siya ma-identify sa isang group of things, halimbawa. Examples, gold Casio digital watch. Siyempre, madaming gold Casio digital watch. Another example, pag sinabi nating red Toyota Fortuner 2017. Indeterminate siya kasi aling red Toyota Fortuner 2017. It cannot be pointed out with particularity. And another example, 100 peso bill. Yung kanina, kung ikukumpara natin dun sa specific kanina, yung 100 peso bill, meron siyang serial number. So, this time, nawala yung serial number. So, kapag sinabi natin 100 peso bill lang, generic siya. Indeterminate thing. So, further distinguishing the two, pag sinabi natin specific or determinate, it is identified by its individuality. Pag sinabi naman natin generic or indeterminate, identified only by its species. Another distinction, pagdating sa specific or determinate thing, the debtor cannot substitute it with another without the consent of the creditor, although the substitute is of the same kind and quality. Or kahit pa superior quality, hindi pwedeng i-substitute ni debtor yung specific thing with another kahit pa siya ay same kind and quality or even kahit nga superior quality. Kasi, yun yung specific thing na napag-agreehan niya sa agreement. Sa inyong contract. And then, pagdating naman sa generic, yung kabaliktaran, the debtor can give anything of the same kind, of the same class, as long as it is of the same kind. Yun yung kaibahan niya sa specific. Kahit anong ibigay ni obligor, ni debtor, provided it is of the same kind. So, papasok tayo sa duties of debtor in obligation to give or to deliver a specific or determinate thing. Specific real obligation. Clear natin duties to ng debtor. Una, preserve the thing. In obligations to give a specific thing or specific real obligations, the obligor or debtor has the incidental duty to take care of the thing due with the diligence of a good father of a family pending delivery. Pag sinabi nating diligence of a good father of a family, it has been equated with ordinary care. Pwede natin siyang sabihing ordinary care or that diligence which an average or a reasonably prudent person would exercise over his own property. Yun daw yung kung titingnan natin is ordinary care lang. And that diligence that an average or reasonably prudent person, yung maayos daw na tao, masinop na tao, would exercise over his own property. Yung pag-iingat na ginagawa mo sa property mo, yun yung tinatawag natin na diligence of a good father of a family. Pero, yun yung general rule. If the law or the stipulation of the parties provides for another standard of care, bali, if halimbawa yung parties mag-stipulate sila na hindi Hindi lang diligence of a good father of family yung i-observe natin sa agreement. Pwedeng either slight or extraordinary diligence, such law or stipulation must prevail. So, yun daw ang magpe-prevail. Yung napag-agrihan or yung provided by law. Specifically, provided by law. And the parties may agree upon diligence which is more or less than that of a good father of family, but it is contrary to public policy to stipulate for absolute exemption from liability of the obligor for any fault or negligence on his part. Pwede daw na ang stipulate ng parties ay yung diligence na less than diligence of a good father of family or more than that. Basta, ang mahalaga, hindi magkakaroon ng absolute exemption from liability si obligor. Because it will now be contrary to public policy. So, yun lang yung rule doon. General rule, diligence of a good father of a family. Exception, if the law or stipulation of the parties provides, yun na pag-agrihan nila, provides otherwise, pwedeng more, pwedeng less than diligence of a good father of a family. Pero, the warning is that it is contrary to public policy to stipulate for absolute exemption from liability of the obligor for any fault or negligence on his part. So, clear tayo doon. Proceed tayo sa next. The diligence required necessarily depends upon the nature of the obligation and corresponds with the circumstances of the person, of the time, and of the place. It is not necessarily the standard of care one always uses in the protection of his property. The debtor must exercise diligence to ensure that the thing to be delivered would subsist in the same condition as it was when the obligation was contracted. Si debtor daw, kailangan niya mag-exercise ng diligence para masigurado na yung thing to be delivered, yung thing agreed upon, would subsist in the same condition. Magiging mananatili siya sa same niyang condition during the time as it was when the obligation was contracted. Limbawa, we agreed, A and B agreed that A shall deliver to B a dog. Let's say a specific Dachshund dog, halimbawa, na identify na tong specific dog. At the time they agreed na i-deliver kay B yung dog, the dog was very very good looking, maganda yung balahibo, and very healthy. Ang obligation daw ngayon ni debtor, ni A, is to deliver the specific dog to B in the same condition nung nag-agree sila. So, at that day of the delivery, the dog should be as healthy, the dog should be as good looking as when they agreed na i-deliver yung specific dog kay B. And para magawa ni debtor ni A, he must exercise diligence. Without the accessory duty to take care of the thing, the debtor would be able to afford being negligent and he would not be liable, even if the property is lost or destroyed, thus rendering illusory the obligation to give. Napakahalaga nga naman nung accessory duty of the debtor to take care of the thing. Kasi if wala nga naman yun, if hindi siya nire-require ng law, malaki yung tendency na si debtor, pababayaan niya na yung thing to be delivered. So, again, the accessory, again, without the accessory duty to take care of the thing, the debtor would be able to afford being negligent. And yun yung ina-avoid ng batas, kaya meron tayong ganitong provision. So, example, Coco binds himself to deliver a specific course, o specific thing tayo, to Jam on September 27. So, quick recap lang tayo sa ating requisites of an obligation or elements of an obligation. Si Coco, siya yung ating passive subject. Or obligor or debtor. Pwede rin. Binds himself to deliver a specific horse to Jam on September 27. Si Jam, siya naman yung ating active subject. Or obligee or creditor. Ano yung ating subject matter or prestation? To deliver a specific course. And yung ating juridical tie, yung kanilang agreement. Yung source of obligation natin is their contract. Agreement or contract, maalin. So, let's proceed. Pending delivery of the horse on September 27, Coco has the additional or accessory obligation to take care of the horse with the diligence of a good father of a family, like feeding the horse regularly or keeping it in a safe place. Coco must exercise that diligence which he would exercise over another horse belonging to him. Yun yung tinatawag nating diligence of a good father of a family. But Coco cannot relieve himself from liability in case of loss by claiming that he exercised the same degree of care toward the horse as he would toward his own if such care is less than that required by the circumstances. So, clear tayo dito. If such care is less than that required by the circumstances, you have to point out na the diligence to be exercised is still is dependent upon that required by the circumstances. If the horse dies or is lost or becomes sick as a consequence of Coco's failure to exercise proper diligence, he shall be liable to Jam for damages. The accessory obligation of Coco to take care of the horse is demandable even if no mention thereof is made in the contract. So, hindi mo raw kailangang i-specify specific yung hindi mo kailangang i-specify mismo sa kontrata na Coco as obligor has the accessory obligation to take care of the horse kasi yun ay implied na and provided siya by law. So, it is as if provided siya sa contract. So, ayun, that is the first duty, preserve the thing. Next are the following. We have additional 4, pero we shall read this na lang and then we shall proceed with the detailed discussion sa mga susunod na articles. Second, deliver the fruits of the thing, Article 1164. Third, deliver the accessions and accessories, Article 1166. Deliver the thing itself, Article Articles 1163, 1233, and 1244 of the Civil Code. And lastly, answer for damages in case of non-fulfillment or breach. Damages, again, sa Tagalog ay danyos. So, ano naman yung duties ng debtor in obligation to give or to deliver a generic? Kanina, specific yung pinag-usapan natin. So, ngayon, papasok na tayo sa generic or indeterminate thing. Or tinatawag natin na generic real obligation. Unang duty ng debtor is to deliver a thing which is of the quality intended by the parties. So, kung kanina yung obligation ni obligor or debtor is to deliver the very specific thing agreed upon, dito naman sa obligations to give or to deliver a generic or determinate thing, ang required lang is to deliver a thing which is of the quality intended by the parties. However, when the quality and circumstances thereof have not been stated, hindi daw napag-agrihan, the creditor cannot demand a thing of superior quality. Hindi pwede mag-demand si creditor na mag-deliver or magbigay si obligor ng thing of superior quality. Neither can the debtor or obligor deliver a thing of inferior quality. Hindi rin naman pwedeng inferior quality ang i-deliver. So, we have also the need to take note that the purpose of the obligation and other circumstances should be taken into consideration. Yung pa rin, taking into consideration pa rin the purpose and other circumstances surrounding that transaction or obligation. And second, to be liable for damages in case of fraud, negligence, or delay in the performance of the obligation or contravention of the tenor or terms thereof. So, balit dalawa lang yung duties ni debtor, which is to deliver a thing which is of the quality intended by the parties, and second, to be liable for damages in case of fraud, negligence, or delay in the performance of the obligation or contravention of the tenor or terms thereof. So, that was 1163. Again, 1163 says that every person obliged to give something is also obliged to take care of it with the proper diligence of a good father of a family, unless the law or the stipulation of the parties requires another standard of care. So, proceed tayo sa Article 1164. It says that the creditor or obligee or ang ating active subject has a right to the fruits of the thing from the time the obligation to deliver it arises. However, he shall acquire no real right over it until the same has been delivered to him. So, in relation sa Article 1164, which talks about fruits, we shall first discuss the different kinds of fruits. Meron tayong tatlo. First is natural fruits, second is industrial fruits, and third, civil fruits. Pag sinabi nating natural fruits, these are the spontaneous products of the soil. Spontaneous, hindi mo siya kinultivate. Basta na lang siya tumubo, ganun. And the young and other products of animals. Example, grass, all trees and plants on lands produced without the intervention of human labor. Yan, walang intervention ng human labor. Walang nagtanim. Walang nag-alaga. Yan. Siya ay natural fruits. Second, industrial fruits. Those produced by lands of any kind through cultivation or labor. Ito yung exact opposite ng natural fruits. These are those produced through cultivation or labor. Tinanim, inalagaan. Examples are sugarcane, vegetables, rice, and all products of lands brought about by reason of human labor. And lastly, civil fruits. They are those derived by virtue of a juridical relation. Halimbawa, rents of buildings, prices of leases of lands and other property, and the amount of perpetual or life annuities or other similar income. So, itong civil fruits, ito yung medyo abstract, kadalasan in form of money. So, what is the right of the creditor to the fruits? The creditor is entitled to the fruits of the thing to be delivered from the time the obligation to make delivery of the thing arises. From the time the obligation to make delivery of the thing arises. Ito yung general rule. The general rule na tinutukoy natin is the perfection of the contract. Ito yung tinatawag natin na time when the obligation to make delivery of the thing arises. The intention of the law is to protect the interest of the obligee should the obligor commit delay, purposely or otherwise, in the fulfillment of his obligation. So, ayan. When does the obligation to deliver arise? Generally, the obligation to deliver the thing due and the fruits thereof. Reminder hindi lang thing due, kasama yung fruits thereof. If any, meron lang naman. Arises from the time of the perfection of the contract, ito yung general rule natin, or to the meeting of the minds between the parties. If the obligation is subject to a suspensive condition or period, it arises upon fulfillment of the condition or arrival of the period. However, the parties may make a stipulation to the contrary as regards the right of the creditor to the fruits of the thing. In a contract of sale, the obligation arises from the perfection of the contract, even if the obligation is subject to a suspensive condition or a suspensive period where the price has been paid. In obligations to give arising from law quasi-contracts, delicts and quasi-delicts, the time of performance is determined by the specific provisions of law applicable. So, ayun, the general rule is, upon perfection of the contract, obligation to deliver the thing due in the first year of already arise. Exception, kapag merong suspensive condition or period. However, pwede rin naman mag-stipulate ang parties na yung kabaliktaran, the parties may make a stipulation to the contrary as regards the right of the creditor to the fruits of the thing. So, in a contract of sale, yung ating pinaka-generic na kontrata, contract of sale, the obligation arises from the perfection of the contract. Kailan daw? From the perfection. Even if the obligation is subject to a suspensive condition or a suspensive period where the price has been paid. In obligations to give arising from law quasi-contracts, delicts, and quasi-delicts, the time of performance is determined by the specific provisions of the law applicable. So, example, S sold his house to B for 15,000. No date or condition was stipulated for the delivery of the horse. While still in the possession of S, the horse gave birth to a colt. Nanganak daw yung horse. While the same is in the possession of S, hindi niya pa na-deliver kay B. So, who has the right to the colt? Sino daw ang may karapatan dun sa colt? The answer is B. B is entitled to the halt. Bakit? In a contract of sale, all the fruits shall pertain to the vendee, or otherwise known as buyer, from the day on which the contract was perfected. Hence, yun nga, B is entitled to the hold. This holds true even if the delivery is subject to a suspensive condition, which in this case is upon the demand of B, or a suspensive period, or in this case, next month, if B has paid the purchase price, but has as a right to the hold if it was born before the obligation to deliver the horse has arisen, and B has not yet paid the purchase price. In this case, upon the fulfillment of the condition or the arrival of the period, S does not have to give the hold, and B is not obliged to pay legal interest on the price, since the hold and interests are deemed to have been mutually compensated.